Good morning, everyone. Once again, this is Marcellus Joyner, past chair of REMCo, and this is the third episode of and Blackademia and Hip-Hop Culture, featuring Jonathan Jones. Jonathan, I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
All right. Hello everybody. Thank you again for having me up here. It's an honor. I really love the project. My name is Jonathan Jones, Jonathan Jamal Jones. There's a lot of Jonathan Joneses out there, so throw that in. Um, but I'm from Kinston, North Carolina. I am a 2017 alum of Winston-Salem State University. That's currently where I work in C.G. O'Kelly Library in the Media Production Lab. I also have a production company called Trinity Labs, where I focus on audio based storytelling, including music production, podcast production, and other media based services. And yeah, I've been a long time fan of hip hop. When I think about it now, it's been over half my life. I've been a fan of it, a participant in it. So it's an honor to be a part of this project with you all.
All right, well, let's jump right into it.
All right.
In what ways do you incorporate hip hop culture into library programs or events to engage the community?
Yes. So CGO Kelly Library is located on the campus of Winston-Salem State University. So a lot of we incorporate a lot of different book displays throughout the library. So at different times we've had different music and hip hop based book displays within the library. And then we also are having recently we started having the poetry slams. What they're really more they're called poetry and prose, but they're basically a space where current students, faculty, and staff can come and participate and just sharing poetry, spoken word, which is a big part of the MC aspect of hip hop. I feel like that is still poetry is right in lockstep with that. So providing that space within the library for people to share. And we're actually looking forward to potentially having music production software and equipment eventually available in the media production lab that people can then use to eventually help create hip hop and then potentially have trainings and things of that nature around that topic.
All right. And where do you see that going in the next couple of years? Like
Man,
it sounds like you're in the mix. So are you looking to kind of carve a niche for yourself on campus and and employment wise with the project that you have going on?
well, so it's honestly these things have been kind of aligned. I work in the media production lab, in the library, and I'm also the advisor to a hip hop club on campus called the Watcher Soundwave. And so a lot of initiatives that are becoming moving in the future are kind of more stuff that the students are kind of spearheading, and we're trying to collaborate with them, meet them in the middle to help with some programming. So I just feel like with being having access with the lab and then with the organization, I'm in a good spot to kind of help nurture different programming that can happen in the library.
That's awesome. Um, has your personal connection to hip hop impacted your approach to promoting literacy and education within the library?
Hmm. I would say I would say yes. I think mainly because I hip hop showed me that information can be transferred in a lot of different ways. And hip hop really served as uh, a really big source for a lot of just worldly knowledge for myself. And I feel like that helps with our students because a lot of times they're incorporating hip hop themes within whether that's papers, that's events, things of that nature. So just being aware of the current the current things that are going on, that kind of helps put in context what the students are doing as far as helping storytell and market their events and things that they're doing on campus. I think that 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 kind of ties out everything in.
Okay. In what ways have you observed hip hop serving as a bridge to connect with younger generations and encouraging their involvement in library activities?
Yes. Well, kind of more some of that what we just spoke of. So yeah, the having the programs that are hip hop themed, whether that's and then including the poetry nights and then just the initiatives that we have moving forward. I think that would be a great way to bring people in. And then there's also other type of programming like listening sessions for albums, having discussions about different projects within the space. So excited about the different types of programming. So I feel like right now we're catching it where it's at the front end of everything starting to build up with us in the library. So it's exciting.
How do some of those poetry nights go? Because I know poetry and rap and hip hop, they are very close in nature. Uh, as a matter of fact, in a prior interview, me and Vivette White were speaking about Gil Scott Heron, and I was telling her that I feel like he's the intersection between spoken word, hip hop, and funk music. Because he at the height of his career, the height of his career was kind of at the beginning of hip hop's journey. So he was kind of a ball of all of that together. So I was just asking, like, do you what kind of vibe are you getting from the students, or and how much leeway do you give them on those poetry nights as far as artistic um their artistic choices?
Yes. So my coworker, Tanya Washington, she's actually spearheading the poetry and prose night. So she's done a great job of marketing it, and pretty much at this point we're doing it in our information commons area. So it's a nice dedicated area for it. So it's really inclusive. And I would say right now it's going between 15 to 20 people. And pretty much they're inviting people. They can recite poems that they have created themselves. They can a lot of guys have come out and done like actual like raps that they've done. They're just doing that a cappella, spitting that a cappella. We had them, yeah. So there's been a variety of different types of poems being read, and so far we haven't had to kind of rein anybody in. It's been pretty self, uh, pretty open, and everybody's kind of respecting the space. And where we do it is nice because it's like it puts it in a place where people can walk by and potentially stumble across this if they didn't already know about it too. So
Right. And that kind of reminds me or brings back the memories of watching Def Poetry Jam and having artists. You had some people who were just straight up poets, but you also had hip hop artists who would come and maybe recite some of their artistry that they have already recorded, or maybe freestyle something new. One in particular, this was pre-Kardashian Kanye.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember distinctly him going on there and doing a snippet of one of his songs, and it went over real well. So I think having an atmosphere like that and an outlet like that, gives students and artists the ability and the space to let the artistic skills flow.
Yeah, definitely.
So, leading up to my next question, how do you see the future intersection of hip hop and library services evolving? And what role do you envision yourself playing in that development?
Yes. I see the future of that intersection like increasing, like just as far as um I know off the top of my head, I know of three libraries in this area that have either a production room or a podcast room or a space like in different degrees, but they're present currently. So I think moving forward, that's only going to increase. There's going to be more this is going to be different, a more developed uh offerings from different libraries. And I think eventually it's going to become the norm to have some type of recording space within the facility. I don't know how long it's going to take, but at some point I think that's going to be kind of the standard. And I think when you have that, then and you look at the communities that the libraries are going to be in, then you see it lends itself to, if people are going to be creating music, there's a good chance that it's going to be hip hop music. Just being based on where everything's at. So I think that naturally just the evolution of technology and the things that are being available, I think is lending itself that you can have different setups, just being in respect to what the library is ultimately wanting to offer. You can have different offerings there. So I think it's only going to increase. And I think especially after this last year, the 50th anniversary, we're still currently in that 50th year. I feel
Yeah,
like the hoopla has kind of died down, but we're still in it. And I feel like there's a lot of programming across the country around just hip hop. So I just feel like aside from just the general use, programming can also be a thing that can continue to increase it.
yeah. And I think that's in keeping with where libraries are going or have been going for the past decade. I remember interning at NC State and just how they use the space. I remember my first day there, and I walked in, and you walk through the front doors. There's a coffee shop off to your left, a print shop off to your right. You go upstairs and you went in the foyer. You have the checkout lines for people to check out materials. But as you walk through, there were spaces for gameplay, meeting spaces for students to just kind of, they can either just hang out or use those spaces to like study groups because they'd have whiteboards set up. So I think it's going to get into a place now where hip hop and tech and just libraries changing from being the stereotypical space of the quiet place, because they're still quiet spaces, but
Right.
they're designated areas now. So I think we're seeing it come full circle, and I think that's an excellent use of space uh, for people to develop their artistry.
Yes.
Right? How has hip hop music shaped your cultural identity and influenced the way you perceive the world around you?
I would say hip hop has shaped me really. I think just probably going back to when I was in middle school, probably beginning in, that's when I was able to stumble across and discover music on my own. And quickly hip hop was, it allowed me to be able to connect with my peers. Um, so different classes I was in, I wasn't necessarily always around my people, people of the same race. And so it kind of caused some type of separation, if you will. But so having the music, that was a common ground that while I was in the cab, even if I ain't seen you all day, I know I know Lil Wayne just dropped this song, and I know that I can jump right into conversation. So I think just that served as a linchpin for just connecting me across members of my own community and then abroad, and just how I perceive the world. I mean, I hear me beats and drums in my, when I'm walking down to the car, it's like a scene. I hear the beats, I hear something, so I think it shaped my really my whole outlook on the world and just being open to innovation and different ways of information being presented to people, like whether you're talking about sampling or just packaging some data that's digestible to somebody. I feel like that's all lends itself to each other. So I think that opened me up to that.
Can you share a specific moment or experience where hip hop song or significant had a significant impact on your emotions or perspective?
Yes. Okay. So um I think you brought up Kanye earlier.
Yeah.
Um so my memory had something to do with him. It's early on. It was um for my beautiful dark twisted fantasy when he released that album at the VMAs and he performed. And I remember seeing that, and he was on the stage, he had his beat machine, and I remember seeing it, and I was like getting that feeling like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. Like, and just that sharp, like my spider senses went off super sharp. It was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's the thing. And I think that sparked my interest in I come from a musical background, my family, but that sparked me wanting to actually start tinkering with producing and making beats. And that kind of began my journey in like trying to be with being a participant within hip hop. Um, I think that was like a real special moment.
That sounds very much. Now I'm not I never was the one to try to freestyle or write a rhyme. But I've always loved the music. So I would say the same way you felt in that moment, I probably felt that way about hearing KRS for the first time
Hmm.
and then following his career. And he coined the phrase edutainment.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So it was he let it be known that you can be ill with the verbal skills, but still have something to say. Like, you know, you
definitely.
can be nice. You can be nice with it and teach people. And
Exactly.
that's been he's been true to everything that he's put out there, like his entire career. You can call him KRS-One or Chris, but
Yeah,
most people call him the teacher.
yeah. The teaching.
Yeah.
It's,
How has hip hop influenced your personal style from fashion choices to overall self-expression?
um, yes, I would say it influenced my self expression a lot because I utilize that as far as my beat making or I write at times as well. So that was that empowered me. I remember being in high school and my boy, a friend of mine, he rapped and he was like, "Yeah, we gonna." I try to record later. I had a laptop. We was gonna try to record, and so I'm in class trying to finish writing something, so it's ready by the time we get there. So just early on, that kind of was embedded. Like that was a way of self expression, and yeah, I think that was a really big linchpin with that. So yeah.
Now, we're talking about personal style as well. So let's talk about, or can you expound on how it influenced your style of dress?
Oh, style of dress. Okay, I
Yeah.
got it. Hey, that okay. Well, honestly, I would say that it set there were certain people I gravitated towards, whether it was Kanye or Drake or Cole. There was just different people like you would see and how they carried themselves. It was like, okay, that feel like me. Let's go that way. But at some point, everybody had to. You had to. Oh, I remember when I was in middle school going to high school. That's when Soldier Boy was really popping. So you had a big tees. You had a big. So it influenced dress throughout, especially when I got to college in Winston-Salem State. I mean, so it was just like what that set the tone, the trend. If it's fried chicken Wednesday in the calf, you can't come and the DJ gonna be in there. You can't come in there looking crazy. You gotta, what I'm saying? Like it set that cultural precedent of there's certain types of certain scenes where you got to show up in a certain type of fashion. So I think that it played a part all the way through.
Yeah. And I think, and not just hip hop, just whatever musical genre you're into, I think it influences the way you dress your entire life. Just what you see, but also your circumstances. Because I think about, the early days of rap and why, watching the old video shows and seeing the fashion, but also growing up in a blue collar home with my, there and my father being a deacon in the church. So there were certain restrictions. There were monetary restrictions, but there was also you not wearing that.
Being wearing it.
You're not wearing that restrictions as well. So, as you grow and as you get more independence, um, and you start making your own money, you start making fashion choices. So you can see, I say for myself, I could see the influence of things that I saw that I wanted to do or wanted to wear, and things that were instilled with me inside the home. So you get
Merger.
this merger of your own personal style, that's um is interesting because one of my friends came up with a word for the style of dress that that I wore in college. He called it conservative wild style.
Ah, okay.
So, so it's kind of like a mixture of hip hop, but also you're in college. You kind of feel
Are
finding
you feel
yourself.
funny?
You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? So there were a lot of blazers, but some cowboy hats mixed in with that. But next day I might have on some Timbs and a dashiki.
mhm. Okay.
So
Okay.
kind of a weird bohemian vibe. I guess for some people, but the the music also influences the fashion. So I appreciate your answer and going in detail about that. In what ways do you think hip hop has bridged cultural gaps, fostered connections between diverse and fostered connections between diverse communities?
Hmm.
Need me to run that back?
Yeah, let's do it one more time.
In what ways do you think hip hop has bridged cultural gaps and fostered connections between diverse communities?
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So what ways? So many ways. I think uh hip hop in itself in this creation is sampling with sampling being such at the core, you were pulling from so many genres and just the creation of a lot of the initial records, which is, has continued to now. So even in its creation, you're pulling from different genres, you're already connecting. I think hip hop in its nature connects cultures, like and just in its own existence. So it's like just the fact that it's being created is making the is bridging the gap. But I think outside of just the creation process, I think just from mainstream it becoming less I know it was looked down upon. I went through that area, that infancy area, uh, era, and it was looked down upon. I think now it's because it's so mainstream at this point. I think it's the aside from Taylor Swift, this is the most popular, the most dominant genre, and
Yeah.
I think that it allows people to just to come together. I went to the Dreamville Festival that J. Cole has here in Raleigh, and you saw all walks of life there, all ages. I mean, folks, I'm like, I thought y'all be at the second service at church or something like, but it has a unifying nature. You go to a lot of different shows, depending on the artist, but you can go even like Anderson Paak, his shows very diverse. Audience there. And I think when you just have that many different people enjoying the same thing, that's going to bloom so many, good connections.
And you made an interesting point, especially about the early early opinions or how society looked at hip hop. I often say that, hip hop is taking the same journey as jazz has. But what's funny is that as hip hop was going into its probably 20th to 25th year, you start seeing the merger of jazz and hip hop, even though there were samples, like, groups like A Tribe Called Quest were already sampling, doing jazz samples, but you had Herbie Hancock, who is a straight up jazz musician. One of the top hip hop instrumental tracks is, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. Is it Rock Box?
Hello,
The
hello.
dun, 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 dun.
Wow.
I can't remember the name, but I definitely know the tune.
Right. Rocket?
Yeah, Rocket. Rocket was probably one of the probably one of the when it's time to break dance.
Yeah, that was
Yes,
it.
sir.
That's it. Okay.
Yes, sir. And then, almost 15 to 16 years later, you had Guru from Gangstar, who just started doing a series of jazz-based rap albums.
Mm,
So I mean, actually do a whole series on how rap intersections with other musical genres. But I think jazz and hip hop are definitely akin to one another, so close that we're almost it's almost named after it because the progression of jazz. You have bebop,
mm. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think what solidified that connection between jazz and hip hop is when Easy Mo B and Miles Davis did the album together. Jazz no, 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 Jasmine Taz was Gurus. It was Doo Sound.
Wow, son. Hey, look, you giving me some gems. You giving me some homework. I'm gonna check these out.
Yeah, Doo Sound. I think that came out in either 80. I was in the eighth or ninth grade, so it's like 89 to 90. It came out some around that time around that time. But yeah, Easy Mo B and Miles Davis. That to me that solidified that connection between the two genres.
Gotcha. Let me check it out. Okay.
Are there any specific hip hop artists or subgenres that you feel a deep connection to, and why do they resonate with you on a personal level?
Gotcha. Is this the time I can highlight any of the local any artists? Is this that one or?
I mean, you can do that at any time, really. But I mean, I say have at it, brother.
All right, cool. All right, gotcha. So any hip hop artist. So I'll just start with my personal four, my personal Mount Rushmore four in my life is in no particular order. It's J. Cole, Drake, Kanye West, and Kendrick Lamar. Those are my personal four. Uh the fifth slot changes a lot, but those are the ones over like the past 15 years. Those have been my go-to ones. But so many artists. I'm a big fan of a lot of the guys on the Dreamville camp, as well as as well as like Ninth Wonders camp, Jamla Records. There's some guys like I'm trying to think on the local scene. I think in North Carolina it is really has a really rich hip hop scene. I think they have a really rich hip hop scene from the MCs to producers, and there's a handful of artists throughout North Carolina that I really like. There are really bubbling on really honestly a lot of them at a national level, but they're based right here in North Carolina. So like Swank and King Draft that signed with Night on Jamla Records. Uh, There's a guy at Greensboro named Wise, really big fan of him. Uh, yeah, I can man, there's a lot. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot. There's Tia Corinne. She went to Winston-Salem State. So she's been doing really good. Sianka, I think the R&B scene is really good here too, the hip hop and R&B, and that's kind of that barrier has obviously overlapped a lot, but I think even now it's with really heavy. But so yeah, really big fan of the North Carolina scene. And I think what resonates with me the most, well, why does it resonate with me on a personal level is just I think growing up for a while, hip hop seemed to be like something that was far over there, like out there or somewhere on TV or 106 and Park up in New York, wherever. But I think at some point along the line, whether that was me stumbling across J. Cole and Ninth Wonder and Little Brother or in Rhapsody, like that kind of opened my eyes of seeing that North Carolina's presence within hip hop already. Petey Pablo, so many people, but and then in so many other genres of music. I think that's why it resonated because it let me know, oh, okay, I'm actually coming from the community that is within this thing. So it kind of a sense of belonging.
I got you. And it's funny because when I think about North Carolina's connection to hip hop, my at a very young age, the first quote unquote superstar or person that we felt like made it out of North Carolina was DJ Nabs.
Mm.
DJ Nabs was from my hometown, Durham. And I remember him when I was a kid, like, I was too young to go to parties, but you would always see the flyers, DJ Nabs DJing at such and such club or DJing at North Carolina Central. Um, and then as I got college age, or my freshman year, he kind of disappeared for a while. And Crisscross had came out, but me personally, I didn't know who their DJ was because I never really paid, I never really saw Nabs like up close and personal
Right.
when I was younger, but I know my brother knew him and like guys, older guys I grew up with knew him. So
Uh-huh.
even like the little flashes of him being on screen in the video, I didn't realize that
That
that's
was
who it
him.
was. And
Yeah.
then, so to me, Nab, to me, and it might have been some people before, but to me, Nabs was the first one that like, he's from my hometown. So I was like, yeah, yeah, we
Yeah.
we can, we can do this. But, as you start to find out information, since we're in the information era, I think Shala Rock from the Funky Four plus one more. I don't think she was born in New York. I think she was originally from North Carolina,
I
but
didn't know
she
that.
but she moved. They moved. I think her family moved and lived in New York. So that's another North Carolina connection. So I'm digging.
Hey, can I throw one more? Can I throw one more?
Okay.
All right, so a real deep one for me is James Brown is so heavily sampled within hip hop, and at one point in time, about 3 to 4 guys within James Brown band was from my hometown, Kinston, North Carolina, and so it's like when I found it out, it was just like, man, it's like this is what's being sampled, and this is like it had a roundabout way of going through funk and going through soul and then getting sampled to get there. And I think that's from like you said, it's an information literacy, just understand, like just gaining knowledge and being able to connect these different dots. I think that's a really rich thing that hip hop does.
All right. Well, I do have an anecdote that my grandmother gave me. I don't know how true this is, but
Okay.
my grandma used to say James Brown loved coming to North Carolina and the Durham area for the women. So
Oh, hey, look, he probably knew where to go.
he knew where to go.
He probably knew where to go.
Has your appreciation for hip hop evolved over time? And if so, how has it shaped your evolving tastes and preferences?
Oh yeah, my appreciation definitely has evolved. I mean, at first it was just music. That's all it was. it was just something to listen to, and just understanding over time just the impact and influence that the music can have, and whether with the messages within it or just the feeling that it gives you, the way it's able to transcribe information, and you having to decode it is it's a whole experience like that you're engaging with. So um I think just over time, just listening to it more, um, uh, participating in it, getting to college, realize I think when I got to college, that's when I really realized appreciated the art of DJing, and how much influence it has. And it's so funny because now DJs are so commonplace now. People, I feel like some people don't
They take
maybe
it for granted.
yeah, they take it for granted. Yeah. Then, and they're so, they're at a wedding, they're at any type of event. So it's like for that to become such a commonplace thing at a social gathering of this element of hip hop to be so common in so many different types of settings. I just think that just shows how it evolved, and then I'm just recognizing it being in these places. That's just speaking to like, just me trying to appreciate where it is, and then taste and preferences. I mean, really, I would say more. I began to, as I've gotten older, just pay attention to put more honest on the message, the lyrics, um, what's the yeah, what's being talked about, what is, how is this going to fall on people's ears, and then also the feeling of it too. But I think that's been more of my taste as I've gotten older. So yeah.
Okay. And I appreciate your perspective because I'm looking at it like, I'm me and hip hop are the same age pretty much. But you're a younger brother, and I'm listening to your perspective, but I'm also thinking about, how I consumed it and how early I was consuming it and how I was consuming it as it was growing as well. So, I think the first rap song I ever heard was The Message.
Mm.
So, and I think people underappreciate the message. Um, well, people who how can I put this? Let me put it this way: people who had not lived that way, or don't relate to the message's message,
Mm.
don't get how
Resonate.
pivotal it is, because basically it's a window into urban Black life when you you know what I'm saying, when you don't have almost a dime to your name,
Mm.
um telling of their story, but also just watching it develop as I'm growing up, watching how the different offshoots and genres started coming out. Like listening to NWA. When NWA came out, it was like it just didn't shock people outside of the Black community. It shocked the Black community too, because as hip hop started to grow and go into these different, you start hearing people's stories from different areas. I'm a kid like in seventh grade listening to NWA, like, yo, what the world is going on in LA? You know
Right.
what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
through listening to their music, I also can relate to a lot of what they're saying as far as like the level of life, and at a certain economic stance, and also being African American. I can't now. I'm not gonna say I related to everything
Right.
in their music, but
Right.
there were definitely things because it's a kinship.
Right.
If you're Black and in America, you got a kinship, especially if you come from a certain economic level. You definitely do. But how we perceive, how you take something in, and then what you do with it afterwards is is what really counts. Because taking that information in, listening to them, I'm thinking for myself, I don't want to live like that. Like, well, how does your neighborhood get that way? You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? Just things of that nature. And so, I mean, I use their music to me was motivation to not have my community um go down that road. You know what I'm saying? Um, and then I mean, I'm just vibing from there, but
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
but and I mean, then you go from there. You have like offshoots of like Diggable Planets, the Black Eyed Peas. That that brought a different, that's a totally different vibe from them.
Exactly.
But that somewhere in their music, they all share kinship. So
A lot of different flavors, man.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of different flavors, a lot of different flavors, and I mean, I think there's a lot of conversations that could be had, especially from people of varying ages, on how the music influenced them.
Yes.
Because me and we have we should have two different perspectives because we have some distance in age.
Right.
But I'm going to get to the next question. But Kanye is interesting because when his albums first came out, I felt like I related to him more than rappers I had other rappers I had seen before, because to me he was the average, not necessarily the average guy, but he wasn't the gangster.
Yeah.
He wasn't the super deep Pan-African rapper. I went to school, I go to college to try to, don't,
Yeah.
try to dress slick, whatever. You know what I mean? So his early albums, I and the way he was carrying himself at the beginning, I
Yeah.
think I related more to that than any other rappers before, because I was just kind of like, oh, okay,
I
all
understand.
right.
That's what pulled me to him as well. Yep.
Now post Kardashian, I
Hi. Yeah, it got a little
got a
interesting.
little shaky.
Got a little interesting, but at the time, it was good.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna beat the brother down or anything like that. But we in order to make your point, we have to talk about the differences in
Yeah, things
who he
evolve.
who he was and who he is. Yeah.
Things evolve.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Can you discuss any positive changes or personal growth that you attribute, at least in part, to the influence of hip hop in your life?
I would say just having the confidence to speak your mind, um, and speak your mind, doing it in a tactful way, kind of seeing it as different approaches. Like you have different MCs, they can say the same line but give it to you in like 10 different ways. So that just kind of shows just it's the different approaches, um and I think just that helped me overall with just my communication, whether that was in large set like group settings or one-on-one. I don't know, it just made me pay attention to the way in which you speak and you deliver information. And that's a big part of emceeing and finding a rhythm, because it's still all speaking. And so I would say that helped, um and I appreciated that over time. And I would say just again mainly that having that connection to my peers, to my community, being able to have these moments and experiences that you share, and being able to connect and share that information, like the same way you said you heard the NWA, you hearing what's happening over here. It's the same, you know, it's the same way, now it's like everybody's, you're able to get snapshots of people's realities through their music. If they're really doing it at a high level, you should feel like you there, through that experience. So I think that has allowed me to grow as a person, because I'm experiencing, seeing, and learning. It's like things that I haven't maybe not experienced fit myself, but I'm seeing the movie that you made through this music. And so that just helped grow your perspective. And it's so many ways you can really, I could go a long time on it, but I would say overall, it's been a positive influence. And I think that it's going to continue. And I think by being uh, an appreciator of it and a participant of it, uh try to just sew into it some of the, some the core values and things, trying to resow different ideals within it, and the different actions that I'm doing to try to push a good narrative, good vibration of the music. And yeah, so I just see it can continue to grow as we move forward, and hopefully libraries and NCLA, REMCo, we keep that being a solid part of what we do moving forward.
All right. Now, uh, now we're coming to a close, and you did touch on your top five. So what I have for you, Jonathan,
Okay.
is who are your top five underrated MCs?
Okay. Underrated MCs. All right.
Underrated MCs.
Top five underrated MCs goes to my catalog here. Let's see, man. Underrated. Um, let's see. I know I can't. Well, I say that the first person pop in my mind. I know you can be like, that's not underrated, but I feel like sometimes Drake's ability is underrated because he has decided to do so much pop and other genres and not have leaned into his pen at times. I think sometimes the actual quality of how his pen can get sometimes is underrated. But that's just the first thing that popped in my mind. But aside from that, man, I say dang, that's tough. Hold on, give me 1 second. I gotta look. You gotta give me a second to look.
All right.
You gotta give me a second to look, man. Let's see. I like this dude Daylight that's with man, I can't say it out of all time though. Who you I can give you producers. I can give you my favorite producers. I can do that easier. I can do
Okay.
I can do that. Let me do that. So all right, so I say my five favorite producers, top five favorite producers would be, I would say Kanye West, not in no particular order, I'm just naming Kanye West. Um 40 is with Drake. I would say um this guy, his name is Key Wayne. He produced a lot for he produced
His
a lot
name, his
for
name
Big
is familiar.
he produced a lot for Big Sean back when Big Sean was like doing a lot of Detroit. He did a song with Jasmine Sullivan. He's done a lot of good stuff, but that was just one of the guys that influenced me a lot early. And I think that's like three. How many is that? Three or four?
I think that was three.
That was three. Uh, Weirdly enough, J. Cole is also one of my favorite producers too. I tend to lean to, yeah. So he's one of my favorite producers too. And then number five, I would say probably is, I know I'm gonna miss somebody. I'm gonna remember later and I'm gonna be mad, like, dang, I should have said, um, dang, who you want to give it to? Who you want to give it to? I don't think it's. I'm gonna say Boy Wonder. That's the first. I can't think of nobody right now. I say Boy
Okay.
Wonder. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But a lot of
Okay.
them more 2000s guys. Um, but I like guys that can incorporate a soulful feel, but also give kind of like a modern trap bounce as well.
Okay. We got a couple of minutes left. I'll give you my five
Okay.
underrated MCs.
Okay. Yeah.
Black Thought.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Black Thought is underrated.
Easy.
And I think it's just because of his personal manner, just how he carries himself. He real laid back, but I don't think people give him the respect that he deserves because, he's been in a group and in a band,
Yeah.
but he's somebody like if you could put him anywhere in a cipher, and
Yep.
he's gonna eat everybody in the cipher up. Um, Bahamadia.
Bahamadia.
Bahamadia does not get the respect that she deserves.
Hmm.
She's part of the Gangstar crew back in the day. Have you ever heard her?
I'm not hip. You putting me on. I'm not
Uh,
hip.
Definitely look up Bahamadia. As a matter of fact, specifically this song called "Three the Hard Way" that she did with two of her friends. But her whole album, her first whole album was fire. Yeah. So yep. Black Thought, Bahamadia, Guru. I feel like Guru didn't get the respect that he deserved, and it's also because he's monotone. I mean, that's just the way he was. As far as like how he rapped, but the lyrics are there.
Got you.
Um, Nick Grant out of South Carolina to bring it more
Grant.
modern. I feel like Nick Grant is underrated, very much underrated.
Okay. I'm hip. Okay.
Nick Grant and I'm gonna say Rhapsody
Yes.
because
There
Rap is a monster. She's a monster,
we go.
and her name needs to strike fear in people
There we go. Yes, sir.
because she's another one. I would say I don't know. I would like to see her and Black Thought go head to head on in a freestyle
Mm.
just to see if she can hold her own, which I feel she can.
Yeah.
Those are my list for top five underrated in my personal opinion.
Hey, that's a great list. I ain't gonna lie. That's great. That's great. I love
And
top
and
album list.
yeah, and what was I finna say? Um, and that's just everybody has their own personal rubric when it comes to these top five. So that's something else that can be discussed
Yeah. What's your top five?
later on, like the I mean, we could just simply call it the rubric, like break down the rubric, actually talk about it, a rubric from an academic at a point, but
Hmm?
also talk about all the different rubrics that people use because everybody has their own personal rubrics when it comes to these lists, these top five lists, or these top 20, or these top 50. Um, and some of these magazines and websites caught some heat for some of their top
Oh man.
50 best of all time rappers. So yeah, you know, I mean, and I probably catch heat for my top 10 or top five.
Of course. Everybody going, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
That's what makes it fun though.
yeah, yeah. Well, brother, I appreciate your time,
Hey.
and at this point, we're gonna close the interview out. Jasmine, take us on out.